guys, welcome back to my channel. I'll be making this beautiful wrap dress that is made with Ankara print and tulle. Before we start, please, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do that now and turn on the notification bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. Thank you in advance. So let's get started. So these are the things I will be using to make this video. Sorry, I did not include the satin fabric I used inside, but this tulle is about 15 yards though. So to start up, I folded my fabric into two, and I'll be using this horizontal line I made as the basis for my measurement. My shoulder measurement is 16 inches, so I'll take half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches, and I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slants. So my round armhole measurement is 16 inches, so I'll measure half of my armhole measurement, which is 8. From my shoulder to waist is actually 17 inches, but I'll be using 15 inches on this dress. Then I'll add 1 inch, which is 16, for sewing allowance, which I'll be using to join to the lower parts. Then I'll make it into a straight line, which is now my chest line. So I'll bring my shoulder measurement, which is 8, to the chest line and connect the lines together. To get my armhole, I will take the midpoint on this line, then I'll come in by half an inch. So from the half inch, I will connect it to the shoulder measurement and then make a curve to create my front armhole. For the back armhole, I will make a curve from the midpoint. So on this line, that is my chest line, I would measure my bust circumference, which is 41. So quarter of my bust circumference is 10.25, but I will make it 11 inches for ease. Then I'll add 1 inch for sewing allowance. So my waist circumference is 36. So quarter of my waist circumference is 9. I'll be measuring 9 inches and I'll be adding 1 inch for sewing allowance. So I'll connect the points together. Oh gosh, sorry guys, I forgot my dart. I'll be taking a dart to give shape to the bust. In order to do that, I need my bust span. So the bust span is the distance between one nipple to another. Mine is actually 4.5, so I'll measure 4.5 on the chest line and on my waist line. So I'll be connecting the lines together. So for my dart, I'll come down by 1 inch from the chest line. Then on the waistline, I'll measure ½ inch on both sides. Then connect it to the 1 inch. So since I'll be sewing in the dart, which is 1 inch, I'll be adding back the 1 inch, then connect it together. For the neck, it depends on how wide you want it to be. I will be using, let's say, 4" because I want it to be a bit open. So for the depth of the neck, I will use 3". That is for the back neck, because I will use this front piece I'm working on as a pattern to cut out the back piece. So for the shoulder slope, I would add ½ for sewing allowance. Then I'll cut it out. I'll cut out the back armhole first. I'll be adding a zipper on the back piece, so I folded my fabric into 2 and I left 1" for zipper allowance. So I'll be placing my front piece on the 1" for the zipper allowance, and I'll trace it out. After tracing it out, I'll divide the back piece into 2. So this is the back piece. I'll divide it into 2, and for the front piece, I'll trim out the front armhole. So for the front piece, I'll be making a wrap neck. Now this totally depends on how deep or open you want it. So I want it a bit open, so I'll be using 9". I will measure 9 on the midpoint. I removed 3" already for the back. So if you don't want the neck to be too open, you could use like 6" or 7" for the depth of the neck. So I'm trying to make a curve here for my overlap, but I don't have a hip curve, so I'm just trying to be smart here, making use of what I have. So if you have a hip curve, please use it to get the accurate curve. So make sure you connect from the 9" to the neckline, and I'm trying to use a freehand to just get the curve. So I'll be cutting it out, and I'll be using it as a pattern to cut the other side of the front piece. To get the other side of the front piece, place the right side on the right side of the fabric, or the wrong side on the wrong side of the fabric, because you need 2 pieces for the front to get the overlap. So I'll be using this satin fabric for the lower part. I folded it into 2, good side facing good side. Sorry, I measured 9" already plus 1" sewing allowance, which is 1/4 of my waist circumference. So for my waistline to my full length is 21", but I'll be marking 25 because I will use 1" to join it to the upper part and 3" to hem the lower part. Then I'll connect the points together. I'll be marking 9.5" from my waist to hips. Then I'll make it into a straight line. So my hip circumference is 44, and 1/4 of my hip circumference is 11. But I'll be marking out, I'll be adding 2" to the 11, making it 13. I'll be marking out 13", and I'll be marking 1" for sewing allowance because I want it to be very free. So here I'll be adding 4" to the 13 to make it 17 because I want it like an A line. Then I'll add 1" for sewing allowance. Then I'll connect the points together and cut it out for my front piece. So this is my front piece. I'll be using it as a pattern to cut my back piece. So I left 1 inch for zipper allowance like I did earlier. Then I'll be placing the front using my pin to secure it before tracing it out. So I have my front and my back piece. So for the back piece, I'll divide it into 2 for the zip. So moving on, I have 2 pieces for the front that will overlap. So I'll take in the dart on both pieces, and I'll also do the same for the back. So I'll be using the bias tape to finish up the neckline on both the front and the back piece. So it is done. I wanted the bias to show on the neckline, so that is that. I have also taken my darts. So I'll be joining the front piece together. So the first thing I'll do is to sew this side I pinned down, then join it together with the 1 inch I left for sewing allowance. So I'll be doing the same for the back piece. I will pin it down first, then sew in 1 inch I left earlier for sewing allowance. So this is one side of the back piece. So I'll be folding in and iron the 1 inch I left for zipper allowance. Then I'll do the same to the other part of the back piece. So this is the front piece. I have joined it together. So for the back piece, I have sewed the zipper allowance I left. I sewed it up to the point where I want my zip to stop. Then I'll attach my zip. So I'll go ahead and pin down my zip first before attaching it. So I've attached my zip, and that is it for the back piece. So I'll be joining the front and the back piece together on good sides facing good side. The first thing I'll do is to sew the 1/2 inch I left for the shoulder allowance. Then I'll sew the 1 inch I left for seam allowance together on both sides. So that is that. I have finished joining the shoulder and the side together, and I went ahead to hem the lower part with the 3 inch I left earlier. So for the tool, you can do it however you want it and how many steps you want it to be. So for me, I'll be making 3 steps. So I'll measure the full length, which is 21. So from the waist, I'll measure 7. From the 7, I'll measure 8. Because I want to have 3 steps, I'll be having 1 step from the waist. And so I'm marking out these lines because I'll gather my tool and I'll be sewing it on top of the lines. So for the tool, you can do it however you want it. But for me, I will measure the length of the tool I want. Then I'll add 1/2 inch for sewing allowance. Then I will fold my tool repeatedly. Then I will place my the one I measured on top of the one I folded repeatedly, and I'll secure it with a pin and trace it out. So I'll cut all the 15 yards this way, then I'll add 2 pieces together and use the longest stitch on my sewing machine to sew the 1/2 inch I left for sewing allowance to gather up by 2. So if you want it very full, you can join more than 2 together, then use the longest stitch on your sewing machine and gather it. So this is it. The third step is 12.5 inch, the second step is 10.5 inch, and the first step that is on the waist is 8.5 inches. So guys, this is it. So you can decide to leave it sleeveless or make any kind of sleeve you want on it, and you can be creative to use whatever you like to cover up the stitch on the waist. So finally, I used a bias tape to cover up the stitches on the waistline. I sew on both sides of the bias tape, and I made a cold shoulder sleeve. So that is it, guys. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please, if so, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video. See you on my next one. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.